listening to Travel with the Backpacking Housewife podcast. I'm your host, Janice Horton. Welcome to episode 7, in which I want to take a light-hearted look at Scotland and the concept of being Scottish. I know that Scotland will be a top destination for many of you this year, and that's why, to inspire you further to visit, I want to explore what it means to be Scottish, and if you're not Scottish, but you have a longing to visit Scotland, and maybe you have a connection to Scotland in some way, what you can do to feel more Scottish. Because as an incomer to Scotland, I feel it's useful to know a few things to do to make you feel Scottish. Because I was once an incomer myself when I moved over the border to Scotland from England over 30 years ago. Scotland is our homeland, not through birth, but certainly by choice, and wherever we may wander in the world, our hearts will always belong to Scotland. I recently read an article in the BBC News asking people in Scotland to comment on a list of factors that might make people Scottish, and the most popular answer was being born in Scotland. However, most people in Scotland say they are willing to accept someone as Scottish who has been living in Scotland for more than a decade. And I know this to be true from my own Scottish experience. However welcome you are made to feel by the inherently warm and friendly Scottish folk, it still takes at least 10 years of living in Scotland not to be considered an incomer anymore. And no offence is meant, it's just simply a matter of commitment. My children, being born and bred here in Scotland, are truly Scottish, with the accent and everything. Unfortunately, no matter how hard I've tried, using all the Scottish words and everything, despite feeling Scottish, having lived here for over 30 years, I still speak Scottish with an English accent. Incidentally, I'm told by my French friends that the same is true of my French language skills. I still sound inherently English. Right now, the backpacking husband and I are living back in Scotland, after selling our Scottish home and everything we owned 7 years ago to go travelling and have adventures abroad. We are currently renting a house near to where we once lived. 2 of our 3 sons still live in Scotland. Our eldest son lives in Edinburgh and the youngest in Glasgow. The middle one, having graduated his Scottish university, went off to teach English abroad 7 years ago, and he hasn't come back. He is now a proud Scot, living in South Korea where he has his own family. So now that the backpacking husband and I are living back in Scotland, I feel qualified to tell you about all the things you can do in Scotland as an incomer to feel more Scottish, and to behave like a local, whether you're just visiting Scotland or if you're relocating here and planning to make Scotland your new home. But please don't take all this too seriously, as it's meant to be a reflection of Scottish homegrown humour, in being slightly tongue-in-cheek. Number 1 is to be friendly. The very first thing that impressed me when we first moved to Scotland was the genuine friendliness of the people. Everyone speaks freely to everyone else, and that's whether they know each other or not. It's all rather lovely rather than invasive, although I was terribly embarrassed at not being able to fully understand the English-Scottish dialect at first. So whether you're out and about in Scotland, whether hiking the hills or walking on the street, do say a cheery hello with a passing comment on the weather that day. It's always an icebreaker. Scots love to talk about the weather. As it's usually grey and raining in Scotland, a remark about the day being dreich, which means dreary, or dour, which means dark, or bonny, if the sun happens to be shining, always evokes an enthusiastic response. Number 2 is talk like a local using Scottish slang. A sandwich is always called a piece, and children are weans. An affectionate term for a woman is to call her a hen. If someone says ken, then they didn't get your name wrong, because it's the same as saying, yes, I know. If something is mingin, then it's disgusting. If something is good, then it's braw. But pure dead brilliant is very good indeed. A bampot is an idiot, and an idiot is an idiot. Steaming is being very drunk, and a hat is always a bonnet. Old reekie is an affectionate term for Edinburgh, and if something is hoachin, then it's always very busy. If you're scunnered, then you're fed up, finished or beat. Number 3. Scottish food and drink. Scotland is often touted as the land of fried food, with deep-fried pizzas and fried chocolate bars on the menu. And it's true, but it's also true that there are many Scottish foods that will intrigue and delight you rather than escalate your cholesterol levels. Scottish seafood is world-class. Clams, mussels, lobster, oysters, loch fresh salmon, smoked salmon. For meat lovers, free-range grass-fed Scottish beef and lamb is also considered world-class quality produce. My personal recommendations for fine Scottish produce would also include haggis, Scotch pie, clouty dumpling, tunnocks tea cakes, iron brew, Scottish whisky, and if it's spelt whiskey with an E, then it's Irish or American, and a cup of tea using tea that's specially blended for the soft waters of Scotland. Having travelled all over the world, I now appreciate Scottish water served straight from the tap, as it tastes of nothing but cold freshness, and that is truly wonderful. Number 4 is celebrate Burns Night. In Scotland, Burns Night is celebrated with a Burns supper on the 25th of January to honour the birthday and the life and poetry of Scotland's bard, Robert Rabbie Burns. The supper is always a menu of haggis, tatties and neeps. Haggis being a blend of meat and oats and spices, tatties being potatoes, and neeps being turnips. A Burns supper is something of a ceremony. People dress for the occasion, men in Highland garb and ladies with a sash of tartan. The haggis on a silver platter will be piped into the room by a piper on the bagpipes as everybody is standing. A speaker will address the haggis in dramatic prose with a poem of Rabbie Burns, and then he'll stab it with his scian dubh, which is a knife. There will be toasts with whisky, lots and lots of whisky, and there will be speeches and jokes and music and dancing, with traditional ceilidh dancing. I have attended many a Burns supper, and they were all wonderful. I would recommend you read a few of Rabbie Burns's poems to get you up to speed on your Burns. Number 5, celebrate Hogmanay. Another important holiday in Scotland is Hogmanay. In other parts of the world, the holiday is called New Year, but in Scotland, Hogmanay means the last day of the year, and the festivities originate in the winter solstice. It's a big celebration. Edinburgh, Scotland's capital city, famously holds the world's biggest Hogmanay party on Princes Street, beneath the castle over which the greatest firework display is lit at the stroke of midnight on the last day of the year. Also, famously, it's Rabbie Burns's poem Auld Lang Syne that is sang in the streets. So to feel truly Scottish, you need to learn all the words of Auld Lang Syne. Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot and days of Auld Lang Syne? For Auld Lang Syne, my dear, for Auld Lang Syne, we'll take a cup of kindness yet, for the days of Auld Lang Syne. Number 6 on my list of things to do in Scotland to make you feel Scottish. Go to the Fringe and the festival. 8 months after the biggest New Year party in the world, Edinburgh hosts the biggest arts festival in the world. During August in Edinburgh, there is the Fringe and the festival, including the Royal Military Tattoo held at the castle. Edinburgh is crazy and busy during this time, and the atmosphere is incredible. There are street performers and buskers and entertainers everywhere, from the world's best known to the as yet unknown. Comedy, music, drama, and everything in between is on offer in Edinburgh during this time. Check out the official Fringe and Festival app to book back-to-back shows while on the move, and so you don't miss out on the 2-for-1 ticket opportunities. I suggest you festival like a local by wearing comfortable shoes, always taking a raincoat, and being spontaneous. Number 7 is go to the pub. In Scotland, a lot of socialising happens down in the pub, the public house. The place with a bar and a cosy, comfortable nook with tables and chairs and a real fire. There's no better place to meet up with friends and partake of a heavy, a pint of beer, or a wee dram, a measure of whisky. In Scotland, the weather is often dreich and dour, and so the pub is a place of warmth and solace. You might find a local band playing. There could be somebody on the fiddle or the pipes, or a wee lassie singing a mellow Celtic song, or even a full-blown ceilidh going on. Number 8 is to appreciate the history. Everyone in Scotland appreciates the past and celebrates their proud history, whether it's in recognition of Robert the Bruce, William Wallace, or Nicola Sturgeon's efforts for Scottish independence, or the hundreds of ancient castles and battlegrounds that remain here. Scotland is a place of living history. To feel truly Scottish, you should familiarise yourself with all of this, and a very good start would be to read the posts on my website at thebackpackinghousewife.com, such as my tour of Edinburgh Castle, as many have never seen it before, and to check out my favourite Scottish castles in Dumfries and Galloway. Also, to feel truly Scottish, look up your family tartan. Everybody has one, even if you're not Scottish. Number 9 is to enjoy the great outdoors. When Scots are not having fun in the pub, or kicking up their tartan heels in Edinburgh, or nursing epic hangovers from their national holidays, then they are outdoors, fully dressed for the occasion, walking the southern upland way, or exploring the fantastic Scottish scenery and Munro bagging. There really is nowhere in the world, in my opinion, like Scotland for misty moorlands and scenic lochs and majestic mountains. A Munro is a list of Scottish mountains all named after Sir Hugh Munro, who surveyed and catalogued them all in 1891. Munros are classed as mountains over 3,000 feet, and there are 282 of them in Scotland. The highest Munro is Ben Nevis, at 4,411 feet. The most challenging are the 12 airy peaks of the Black Cuillin on Skye, and the narrowest ridge walk in Glencoe. Munro bagging is an actual thing, although that's nothing to do with haggis hunting, which is also a thing. Number 10. The final way to feel truly Scottish is to shop for warm woolen clothes and tartan-themed outfits in Glasgow's Buchanan Street or Edinburgh's Princess Street. From high street stores to Harvey Nicks and designer names, it's all there and more. My top tip for feeling properly and stylishly Scottish is to shop in Morningside, as that's where all the best pre-worn, pre-loved, second-hand charity shop finds are to be found. For example, I have a gorgeous, soft and comfortable cashmere sweater from a Morningside charity shop that cost me £10. It's my favourite and most precious possession. It's actually accompanied me all around the world, and I love it, and actually, I'm wearing it right now. Of course, if you're listening to this podcast and you are not in the UK and you can't live your dreams of getting to Scotland as soon as you like, then there are still things you can do and practice to feel more Scottish. For example, you can listen to some Scottish podcasts on history or culture, or listen to some Scottish music. Tap your feet to traditional tunes and dance to Gaelic music, or pop songs from the Bay City Rollers to Runrig and Amy MacDonald. You can learn Scottish dancing and join a virtual ceilidh on the Visit Scotland website. You can watch lots of movies about Scotland and learn about the passionate history of the bonny homeland from Braveheart or Outlaw King, or even binge watch the whole series of Outlander. Or watch movies that feature Scotland, like James Bond's Skyfall. You could also follow Scotland on Instagram and be amazed at all the fabulous Highland scenery without the real-life risk of being eaten alive by the Scottish midge. And if you're really hankering for an immersive Scottish experience, you could bag a virtual Munro on the Cairngorm website, or go to YouTube and Flying Over Scotland for some amazing and relaxing drone footage of magical Scottish landscapes. Or you could take a virtual stroll to explore more of Scottish history and archaeology with a tour of the National Museum of Scotland on Google Street View. It's the first museum or gallery in Scotland that's available for exploration online. I do hope these tips on how to feel more Scottish have been helpful to you. Have you ever visited Scotland? Do you live in Scotland? Do you want to move to Scotland? Don't hesitate to get in touch and tell me about it. I'd love to hear from you because my podcasts are totally focused on not only inspiring you to achieve your own travel dreams in your midlife and beyond, but also in answering all your travel questions. Email me through my contact page on my website or get in touch through my social media channels. I'm on Facebook as the Backpacking Housewife and I'm on Instagram as Janice Horton Writer. And if you're on Twitter, please do tweet me your travel goals and your questions about Scotland or anywhere else in the world at Janice Horton. That's JANICEHORTON. And come and travel with me here on Travel with the Backpacking Housewife podcast. Subscribe and follow for inspiring and informative new episodes each week, in which I'll be discussing ways to plan for and to prioritise travel in our lives and in our new future, and what is set to become a new and golden age of travel.